Ladies and gentlemen, this is the panel I've been looking forward to the most. The title they've given it is A Conservative Foreign Policy. And we're going to start right away with, without any banter from me, without any jokes. We're just going to get right into it. Introduce our first speaker. And to me, it's a great honor to be able to introduce this gentleman, Mr. Bruce Fein. Now, if you have a program, you'll notice on page 6, the guy has about 10,000 credentials. So I refer you to this. He gave a really quite extraordinary speech at the Rally for the Republic, some of you may know, and you can watch it on YouTube. That was about 2 years ago. He graduated from Harvard Law School with honors in 1972, one of the few sane people who can say that. He served as Associate Deputy Attorney General under President Reagan, and in addition to a great many other academic and legal credentials, he is the author of the forthcoming book, published by Campaign for Liberty, American Empire Before the Fall. This guy is a scholar, a gentleman, and really quite a captivating speaker, and I'm just delighted to be able to introduce to you Mr. Bruce Fein.
Well, thank you, Tom. Whenever you're the beneficiary of such effusions, you always remind yourself none of it was said under oath. Right? That's what Sam Johnson once said in writing lapidary inscriptions. You had freestyle opportunities to improve on your adjectives. I want to discuss today foreign policy of the United States in the context really of my forthcoming book, The American Empire, because I think it's truly a disaster. It has many of the earmarks that also, I think, infect our domestic politics, a primary one being a search for a risk-free existence that requires projecting our military in 135 countries and inflating every danger a millionfold that characterizes one suicide bomber, one criminal as the equivalent of the Luftwaffe or the Soviet Red Army or something of that sort to justify suspending habeas corpus, violating due process, spending tens of billions of dollars abroad, killing innocents through predator drones whose targeted are persons of whom we know nothing. We have no idea how the intelligence is used to target these drones, whether when we're told their 10 militants died, are they really militants or not? Do we go and do a post-mortem and get evidence that that the targets hit the appropriate individuals? Anyway, that's a series of questions that I think we need to focus on, because ultimately the Founding Fathers understood that if tyranny ever came to the country, it would come in the guise of inflating a foreign danger. Those are the words of James Madison, the father of the Constitution. That's exactly what the American Empire foreign policy has become. It's been accelerated after the disintegration of the Soviet Union, further accelerated after 9/11. But I want to examine what I think is a fair-minded approach to examining dangers abroad realistically, applying our constitutional principles and seeing where we ought to be today. That's so drastically different than where we in fact are. But remember, one of the constitutional preamble begins by identifying 6 major purposes of our endeavor as a republic. And one of the major ones is to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. And the Founding Fathers underscored to ourselves and our posterity, to the exclusion of going abroad in search of monsters to destroy. We do not have in our Constitution any obligation, any authority even, to go abroad and use military force to secure liberty or freedom for Afghans, Zimbabweans, Chinese, or otherwise. We have the opportunity, if we wish, to volunteer. There are volunteers in the Flying Tigers in World War II. There are volunteers of the Abraham Lincoln Brigade in the Spanish Civil War. But as the government of the United States is confined under the Constitution to protecting our liberties here, securing the blessings and institutions that make sure our country is a more perfect union. And that is critical. That is critical because you can imagine, the unbelievably broad power that be needed to become a world policeman. And some people don't even stop at the planet. They want interplanetary liberty. You may be plotting in Mars, Then you go intergalactic, That's what NASA needs to do to get their increased budgets. They have. You know, Osama's got the little baby Martian there that's planning an attack on us. You got to send those billions out there. We don't want to take any chances. Mushroom clouds will be behind us soon. But not only were these words, these in fact were acted upon by the founding fathers. After we secured our freedom from Great Britain, there were numerous empires around the world. The Chinese Empire, Austrian-Hungarian Empire, Russian Empire, Ottoman Empire, British Empire, French Empire. We didn't attack any of them. George Washington didn't announce a crusade to liberate the Chinese from their oppression, or the Ottoman subjects from the oppression of the Ottomans or the Austrian-Hungarians. Indeed, when Central and Latin American nations rose up against their Portuguese and Spanish colonial masters, we were strictly neutral. We didn't even recognize these new countries. There are about 30 of them that emerged around 1809 to 1830 until Spain and Portugal did. We sympathized with the ideas of democracy, but as John Quincy Adams put it in his 1821 July 4th address, we do not go and search abroad for monsters to destroy. We could become dictators in the world, but we would lose our republic in the process. We would lose our republic in the process. And we strictly adhered to those principles throughout the first 75 years. They began to erode with the Mexican-American War. John Quincy Adams was really the last of the founding generation who served in high office. He voted against the Mexican-American War with Abraham Lincoln in 1846. And even someone who had no qualms about fighting war, Ulysses Grant, fought in the Mexican-American War and described it as one of the most squalid in the history of mankind, that we were just emulating the old European balance of power wars without any reason whatsoever. Because the Mexican-American War really foreshadowed, in some sense, the Iraq War, Afghan wars, where misrepresentations were made in order to create fear and justify intervention. There, we had a president, James K. Polk, who lied about the alleged Mexican killing of an American soldier on American soil in order to get Congress aroused and to authorize the Mexican-American War. Abraham Lincoln introduced what was called spot resolutions to try to have an investigation to insist that Mr. Polk identify the spot on U.S. soil where an American soldier was killed by a Mexican. Maybe similar, you might think, analogous circumstances to identifying where all these weapons of mass destruction were in Iraq that justified the invasion. It didn't exist. There were no investigations made in order to keep the war ongoing. In Iraq, it's gone long enough that we've had to change the justification for entry. But the lies that preceded the entry into war have been with us for well over 150 years. Prior to Iraq, we had the Gulf of Tonkin resolutions, the misrepresentations of what happened with regard to North Vietnamese torpedoing our ships. And continuing on, we have this idea that you can lie to get into war because, after all, we're the United States and we need to become the policemen of the world.